Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the In Defense of Christians National Summit 2021, Combating Oppression and Empowering the Oppressed. Good evening, everyone. I don't know if you guys can hear me. I think we need to turn the volume up a little bit, huh? Okay, there we go. There we go. All right, good evening, everyone. We'll start it again. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the In Defense of Christians National Summit 2021, Combating Oppression and Empowering the Oppressed. Sorry about that. We have a little bit of delay right there. My name is Tracy Sable, and I'm the lead anchor of EWTN News Nightly, and I'm so excited to be here with all of you again this year and with everyone in person. We are live from the IDC headquarters in Washington, D.C., and we are also broadcasting across the globe. And we are so blessed that all of you can join us tonight. We have a jam-packed program for you tonight, which includes bipartisan members of Congress, senior government officials, senior Christian faith leaders, and some of the world's foremost experts on international religious freedom. Throughout this evening's program, we'll be checking in with our live panel of resident experts for commentary and analysis. IDC has grassroots chapters active from coast to coast, but we are also counting on all of you, all of our viewers from around the world to keep this conversation rolling. We'll also be monitoring the YouTube live comments section for your live questions, as well as comments. And we love to know who you are, so please let us know your name and also where you're viewing from. That's very important. And without further ado, let's jump right into our program. Please rise for the opening prayer offered by Bishop Gregory Mansour and remain standing for the United States National Anthem performed by the United States Air Force Singing Sergeants.
Thank you, Tracy. Before I pray, I just want to bring to mind two archbishops from Aleppo. For I think 14 years ago, they were kidnapped, and we have not heard if they're alive in this world or in the next world. So I'd like to begin with a little prayer for them. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, we thank you, in fact, for the privilege of suffering and being persecuted for your church. We're not afraid. We don't back down. And we don't cower before any threats. But we stand boldly before your divine face and profess our faith in Jesus Christ. We thank you not only for the privilege of suffering persecution, but we know that it brings about in us a solidarity, a charity, a love for neighbor, a forgiveness for the sinner, and a boldness to continue to live our lives in witness to the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. We thank you, Heavenly Father, for gathering this group of people who are committed to advocate for what is true and good, that all people have the right to a relationship with God. We ask you to bless our advocacy for religious freedom throughout the world, for we know that in freedom it is when we truly can love you and love our neighbor. And we ask you to bless our time and our conversation through Christ our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
Oh, that was incredible. So beautiful. All right, well, now it's my honor to introduce a man who has dedicated much of his life to preserving the historic Christian communities of the Middle East, IDC President, Mr. Tawfiq Baklini.
Thank you. Good evening, friends and supporters, and welcome to IDC's 8th National Summit 2021. In 2014, IDC started to protect and preserve Christianity in the Middle East, and we decided to start as a group, myself and Andrew Doran, to start this great organization to protect and preserve Christianity in the Middle East. And that year we decided that we will do our event on September 11th, and for a very good reason. What happened in September 11 and what Al-Qaeda did attack the United States, they are the same enemies that attack Christians in Syria, Iraq, and all over the Middle East, just with different names. Qaeda, ISIS, the Islamic State, the Muslim Brotherhood, ISIL, they're all the same, but with different names. But since 2014, In Defense of Christian has been a leading voice in Washington, D.C. for the persecuted Christians in the Middle East and around the world. 2021 has presented many challenges for the persecuted Christians across the globe. 80% of the persecuted worldwide happen to be Christians. We will hear later on from several of our speakers about this. And we are hard at work every day to ease this suffering. This year, we're concentrating on two big issues. And the title of our advocacy is Save Lebanon and Stop Turkey. So, as we all know, in Lebanon, there is a corrupt government, and we need to, and Hezbollah is in total control of the country. It used to be the only democracy in the Middle East, It has nothing to do what I call, instead of in defense of Christians, we call it in defense of Lebanon. Because in Lebanon, the Christians don't need help, they're not getting persecuted. But Hezbollah, in his own way, is persecuting Christians and others with their weapons and terrorizing the country. So, and with Lebanon, with over 2.2 million Syrian refugees, it's like bringing in to our country here 150 million. We're having a hard time right now on our border with only a few thousands at the border. Can you imagine 150 million refugees in this country? So we need to find a solution for those refugees. And we need to help the Lebanese and the Lebanese armed forces to secure the border. This is how Hezbollah, they use the border to bring in weapons to Lebanon, and also to help the Assad's regime. So we call on the expansion of the UNIFIL mandate to secure the southern border, as well as the rest of the border with Syria, the Bekaa Valley, the Bekaa, and other areas. So over the past year, IDC has played a pivotal role in securing historic milestones for freedom, religious freedom. And we will continue doing this. I'm also afraid for this country of ours. As you know, many countries and many terrorists want to hurt us here in our homeland, in the United States, like what happened in 9/11. And as we all know, hundreds of Americans were fighting along with ISIS and other terrorist organizations in the region. So we want to make sure also we're also secure here. We want to keep the terrorists out of the United States. On April 24th this year, after more than a century, President Biden officially recognized the Armenian Christian genocide, which claimed the lives of over 1.5 million Armenians and an additional 1.9 million Greeks, Assyrians, Chaldeans, Syriacs, Arameans, and Maronites between 1915 and 1923. So we're grateful for the President in doing this. In May, the United States Department announced an increase of $15 million in foreign military finance to the Lebanese armed forces. And earlier this month, President Biden authorized an additional $47 million for a total of $62 million in defense assistance to the Lebanese armed forces. On August 4th, the one-year anniversary of the devastating Port Beirut explosion, President Biden announced nearly $100 million in humanitarian assistance directly to the Lebanese people through USAID. Because of the corruption in Lebanon, we always talk with the US government to help the people directly. And this money is going directly to the people without going through the government. So we want to thank also the government for this help. In June, the U.S. State Department announced plans to deliver over $400 million in additional humanitarian assistance directly to Syrian civilians, many of whom are Christians deeply affected by the decade-long civil war in Syria. In July, the U.S. State Department announced plans to deliver nearly $155 million in additional humanitarian assistance to genocide survivors in Iraq. This is a project that was started before by our previous administration, Trump administration, and we're grateful also for continuing help on this with the Biden administration. But our work is not over. There's still much more to be done. In addition to IDC's milestone achievements, we are actively championing a number of ongoing initiatives in Congress and the executive branch, including U.S. and international support for the Patriarch of the Maronite Church in his calls for active neutrality and a UN-led international conference to address the humanitarian, economic, political, and security crisis in Lebanon. We will continue to work with Congress, the State Department, and USAID to increase humanitarian assistance. We have been crystal clear with the U.S. administration. While we are not advocating for a renewed deal with Iran, we hold firm that any potential deal must be conditioned on Iran's unconditional dismantling of its proxy militias throughout the region, which have brought untold suffering, even for Americans. We lost many American lives in Syria and Iraq, and which have brought untold suffering to Christians in Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon. We also continue to call on the appointment of a special envoy in Nigeria, where the ongoing anti-Christian violence is nothing short of a genocide against Christians, yet it remains unrecognized. In 2014, the Near East and South Central Asia Religious Freedom Act was passed by Congress in a bipartisan basis and signed into law by President Obama then. It authorized the designation of a special envoy to promote freedom for religious minorities in the Middle East and South Central Asia. Unfortunately, the post has remained vacant since its authorization in 2014. Last week, IDC sent a letter to President Biden signed by 22 Christian leaders, former members of Congress, and subject matters, calling on President Biden to appoint a special envoy to promote freedom for religious minorities in the greater Middle East in accordance with a duly passed law. This is a law that passed in 2014, so we're asking the President to appoint a special envoy for religious parties in the minorities in the Middle East. We're also leading the fight against Turkish President Erdogan and his persecution of Christians in Turkey and internationally. We are working in the U.S. government to push back against Turkish aggression against Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh, Cypriots and other Christians in Cyprus, and Syriac Assyrian Christians in northern Syria and northern Iraq. We are fighting to ensure that Christianity does not disappear from Syria and Iraq in our lifetimes. To that end, tonight I call on the U.S. government once again to increase sanctions on Turkey for its many violations against international religious freedoms and state-sponsored persecution of Christians. We also call on Secretary of State Blinken to discontinue Saudi Arabia's long-standing sanctions waiver and designate Saudi Arabia as a country of particular concern for its religious freedom violations and apply appropriate sanctions. Finally, We are actively advocating for a series of legislative measures. Senate Resolution 1637, House Resolution 558, to cut off Hezbollah's financial networks and erode Hezbollah and Iran's control in Lebanon. House Resolution 117, to urge improvement treatment of Copts in Egypt. Basically, we're asking for them to be treated equally. And we will continue to work with Congress and with the government of Egypt. House Resolution 3056, to respect the rights of the ecumenical patriarch in Turkey. Senate Resolution 97 and House Resolution 445, to end the violence against Christians in Ethiopia. There's also an ongoing genocide going in Ethiopia. House Resolution 143, to recognize the Simile Massacre of 1933. And of course, Senate Resolution 80, to establish a Senate Human Rights Commission. We would like to have a Senate Human Rights Caucus Commission to be officially, we have one in the House and we're working on one in the Senate that's led by two of our friends, Senator Tillis and Senator Coons. We thank the Biden administration, the Blinken State Department, and USAID under Administrator Power for their cooperation and results thus far. We urge them to continue to elevate international religious freedom as a foreign policy priority. We also thank our partners in the 117th Congress for their leadership, tireless work, and continued partnership. It's our partnership with Congress that makes our work possible. So I want to thank many that are here and present tonight. Our co-chair, Congresswoman Spear, and Congressman Adderholt that I saw earlier, and Congressman Gonzalez, thank you. We're one of our tonight's champions. So I want to thank everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure this evening to announce IDC's 2021 Congressional Champions, a bipartisan group of legislators whose record demonstrate their concern for the Christians in the Middle East, in Africa, and all over the globe. IDC's 2021 Congressional Champions are Senator Bob Menendez, Senator Jim Rich, Senator Chris Van Hollen, Senator Todd Young, Congressman Tim Burchett, Congressman Ted Deutsch, Congressman Vicente Gonzalez, who is present here with us, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson-Lee, Congresswoman Debbie Lesko, Congressman Michael McCall, Congressman Hal Rogers, and Congresswoman Dina Titus. Congratulations to all of our congressional champions on their well-deserved honor. Later in this evening, program will also be presenting IDC's top awards, the Charles Malik Human Rights Award and the Cedars of God Award. To our friends and supporters and partners joining us this evening in Washington, D.C. and around the world, it is an honor to have your support once again. Without your support, our work wouldn't have been possible. We hope you enjoyed this evening's program. Thank you, and may God bless you.
Well, thank you so much, Tufik, and thank you so much for what you do. All right, ladies and gentlemen, next it's my honor to introduce to you Dr. Nadim Haddad, IDC Board of Trustees.
Good evening, everyone. My dear friend Tufik, congratulations on your hard work, perseverance, and a long list of achievements for the last few years. What an honor it is to be here with you tonight, this evening at the IDC National Summit 2021. I am Dr. Nadim Haddad, and I sit on the Board of Trustees since its inception. You might be wondering what the doctor is for. I'm a gastroenterologist, but when people ask me, they wonder what GI stands for. And I simply put it, I get to know my patients inside out. For centuries, Christianity has been the subject of fierce persecution, not only in the Middle East, but across the world. What we witnessed happening to the Christians in the Middle East and Africa is no different than what has occurred centuries past. The only difference is that now we see it on a camera, we see it live, thanks to modern technology and thanks to the global media. The world's indifference has become informed concern. Since 2014, it's been IDC's mission to turn that concern into action. Thanks to your support, IDC has been able to accomplish so much in such a short period of time, since its inception in 2014. I am proud to serve on the IDC Board of Trustees. IDC has become the answer to centuries of indifference. IDC has played a crucial role in raising awareness and funding projects and programs to help support the local Christian communities in the Middle East and other parts of the world. To all our friends and supporters with us tonight and those joining us virtually, the historic accomplishments achieved by IDC are a testament to your passion, enthusiasm, and support. A big, big thank you. My sincere congratulations to IDC's 2021 Congressional Champions on the well-deserved honor. Without IDC's Congressional Champions, our work would not be possible. We hope you enjoy the evening, and thank you, and God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Haddad. Well, ladies and gentlemen, IDC is an organization, as you know, with broad bipartisan support. This is a testament to the universal nature of the issue of religious freedom and human rights. In this bipartisan spirit, this year's summit's co-chairs include Republican Congressman Gus Billericus and Democrat Congresswoman Jackie Speer. And we are blessed to have Representative Speer right now. I'd like to invite her up to say a few words.
Good evening, everyone. It's an honor to be with you again. I remember a lovely dinner a couple of years ago in which I had the pleasure of being with you as well. In defense of Christian Summit, thank God you have this summit. Thank God you organized this organization some years ago. I want to acknowledge my co-chair of the Armenian Caucus, Gus Billericus, who I believe will be here later. We are in the middle of a votorama, as we call it from time to time, and we'll be burning the midnight oil, I'm afraid, tonight in the Capitol. but I snuck away because we're in the middle of a debate and the vote's not going to take place till about 8 o'clock. So don't tell anyone that I wasn't there. But to President Tufik Baklini, excuse me, and to the IDC Board of Advisors and Trustees, thank you. Thank you for what you do. I wholeheartedly support IDC's mission to safeguard the rights of all people in the greater Middle East, especially those vulnerable to violence, marginalization, and persecution. You know, as a child, I learned from my Armenian-American mother about the atrocities in Armenia. And I must say, it wasn't until I visited Armenia and went to the Genocide Museum that I truly understood what had happened. That 1.5 million Armenians were massacred by the Turks back in 1915. The genocide is particularly painful right now because, as all of us knew, the actions last year by Azerbaijan in conjunction with Turkey to attack Nagorno-Karabakh, Artsakh as we call it, was beyond the pale. And I am still angry by the fact that we in the United States sat on our hands. We cannot allow for countries to persecute those that are Christians and, frankly, those that are representative of other minority religious groups. As you may know, the consequences of that attack by Azerbaijan displaced about 100,000 people in Artsakh. It also was responsible for the destruction of many of the Christian cultural places of worship and other sites. The deliberate shelling of the iconic Shusi Cathedral and the removal of its distinct Armenian pointed dome should sadden all of us. And now there's great fear that the ancient Divinic monastery is also going to be lost. But Armenians are not alone in the struggle. Christians in Lebanon, Turkey, Algeria, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and other countries throughout the Middle East suffer discrimination in education, in employment, restrictions on public acts of worship, and so much more. According to a report commissioned by the British Foreign Ministry, Christian women are disproportionately likely to be victims of discrimination and persecution in certain countries, including through human trafficking, gender-based violence, kidnapping, forced conversion, and forced marriages. Religious persecution has no place in any society, which is why I've introduced legislation on the Rohingya religious minority in Burma, the Sikh and Hazara communities in Afghanistan, and others. Most recently, I'm proud to lead a resolution condemning the atrocities against the Chinese Uyghur ethnic and religious minority, with a particular focus on women. Despite these challenges, I'm still hopeful. I was privileged just last week to visit Cyprus, one of the only Christian majority countries in the Middle East, where I experienced firsthand the warmth and hospitality of its people who have suffered their own share of violence. We owe it to victims of persecution everywhere to continue to fight and prevent religious injustices, intolerance, and oppression around the globe. Now, I want to end with another place I visited last week, and that was Auschwitz-Birkenau. I've read about it. You've read about it. It was an outrageous Holocaust. But there's nothing like visiting it to be haunted by it. It haunts me today. It will haunt me the rest of my life. 1 million people were burned in furnaces at Auschwitz-Birkenau. And people around the world knew about it and did nothing. So your work and my work to make sure that we hold those accountable for these atrocities today and tomorrow is imperative. So I join with you in saving Lebanon and stopping Turkey, among other countries who are oppressing people around the world.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. And now at this time, I'd like to welcome up Representative Vicente, I mispronounced that, so I apologize, Gonzalez, to say a few words for us. Please forgive me.
Thank you. Good evening. It's an honor to be here this evening with you. As you know, we've had a crazy, wild day of votes, and it's going to be a busy week, but it's an honor to be here with such a gracious group and that's doing such important work on Capitol Hill. I would like to thank everyone for inviting me. I had the honor of visiting Lebanon just 2 years ago, and I think it was a life-changing experience for most Christians who visit a country like Lebanon, especially in the conditions and times that Lebanon is going through today. And it was easy to join the cause, to join this cause, what you're doing every day, fighting for Christians around the world, fighting for Catholics in struggling countries, that it's not only Lebanon, as we talk about, it's a host of countries. And there is a cancer in Lebanon. Hezbollah is a cancer for Lebanon. And I think Christians around the world need to unite on this cause. When Democrats and Republicans unite for something, it's got to be right. And this is a cause that both sides have agreed and understand that there's a lot of work to do, and we need to continue advocating for our friends in the Middle East, our Christian friends in the Middle East and around the world that are dealing with persecution, and keep influencing policy on Capitol Hill and in the White House, and letting the American people know of these atrocities that are occurring still today. Things that we think were behaviors of the past are happening today in Lebanon and many other countries. So it's an honor to be here. It's an honor to receive an award. I can't believe they're giving me an award for this. It's something that I love. It feels warm in my heart to do what we're doing. And my doors are always open for you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
This way. The award is a piece of the Cedars of God from Lebanon, and it says, "In Defense of Christian, Champion 2021, Congressman Vicente Gonzalez," I said it right, "advocating for the protection and preservation of Christians and Christianity in the Middle East, where it all began." And many members, even of Congress in 2014, and many Americans did not know that's where Christianity began. A congressman, a friend of mine, was talking with his other friends, and he told them Jesus was not born neither in Paris or in Richmond. He was born in Jerusalem, and he's been to Lebanon. It is where Christ walked and where he preached, and this is where Christianity began. So thank you, Congressman Gonzalez. Thank you. She was angry. She looked Lebanese.
Thank you.
Thank you so much again, Representative Gonzalez. Congratulations. Thank you for all that you do. We really appreciate it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, for many years, His Holiness Mar Awar III has been an integral part of the IDC family as a member of the IDC Religious Advisory Board. His Holiness was looking forward to being with all of us this evening, but on September 9th, by the grace of God, he was elected and consecrated as the 122nd Patriarch of the Assyrian Church of the East. He is currently residing in Erbil, where hundreds of thousands of Christians found safe haven following the ISIS genocide in 2014 to 2017. His Holiness Mar Awar III sends his very best and his blessings to tonight's gathering and looks forward to continuing on the IDC Religious Advisory Board. And right now, it is my honor to introduce to you Congressman Robert Aderholt. Okay, it looks like unfortunately he is not here right now. But right now we'd like to bring you some messages from the bipartisan group of members of Congress. Ladies and gentlemen, Representative Debbie Lesko, Representative Brad Sherman, Senator Tom Tillis, and Senator Chris Van Hollen.
Hi, I'm U.S. Congresswoman Debbie Lesko, and I just want to say thank you so much for the great award that you gave me in defense of Christians. I really appreciate all the work you do. I'm a huge supporter of protecting the religious freedoms and rights of Christians all over the world. And that's one of the reasons I introduced a resolution commemorating the Somali massacre and making sure that it never happens again. Again, enjoy your day. Thank you for everything you do, and God bless you.
Hello, I'm Congressman Brad Sherman, and I'm from California's best named city, Sherman Oaks. Welcome to In Defense of Christians 2021 National Summit on Combating Oppression and Empowering the Oppressed. For 25 years, I've served on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, where I'm the second-ranking Democrat. During my time in Congress, I've had the opportunity to work with In Defense of Christians numerous times and to attend the National Summit on many occasions. This work is so important. I recently had the opportunity to stand with In Defense of Christians and others supporting Lebanon's Maronite Patriarch and his call for peace in Lebanon. I was honored to be named a congressional champion by In Defense of Christians for my past work, and I look forward to working with your president, Tawfiq Baklini, and all of you in the future. I've worked with In Defense of Christians to support the Egyptian Coptic community, and in my meetings with Egyptian officials, including the president, I make sure that the message is clear. I support the protection of the Egyptian Coptic community, and all Americans do. Congress is paying attention, and Congress will not let the Coptic community be forgotten. And as to the Armenian genocide, the first genocide of the 20th century, we have fought for the moment when Congress would recognize historical fact, and now we have both the President and Congress who have formally recognized the truth of the genocide. We have learned that we need not quiver, we need not bow to Turkish pressure, and we should stand up for historical accuracy for Christians in the Middle East. We need to recognize the Armenian genocide and the other genocides against Christians and others, because genocide denial is the last step of a genocide. When you blot out not only a people, but the memory of their destruction. And genocide denial is often the first step in the next genocide. We must continue to speak out against oppression and support vulnerable communities. I'm Congressman Brad Sherman.
Hi, I'm Tom Tillis, Senator from the great state of North Carolina. Thank you for allowing me to be with you tonight at the Defense of Christians Solidarity Dinner. Your work is so important for religious freedom around the world. During my time as senator, I've worked hard to support your advocating for fair treatment of Christians and followers of all religions. As co-chair of the Senate Human Rights Caucus, I supported a resolution establishing the Senate Human Rights Commission, hoping to defend and promote internationally recognized human rights norms around the world. I've also worked with Senator Chris Coons to contact the Egyptian embassy to protest the arbitrary detention of the Coptic Christian advocate Rami Kamal. In June, I was proud to join Senator Coons and subject matter experts in a Senate Human Rights Caucus briefing focused on continuing human rights and religious liberty issues in Turkey. Our work is not done, but like you, I will not stop working to establish fair religious treatment across the globe. Thank you for all you do, and God bless.
Hi, I'm Chris Van Hollen, and I'm proud to represent Maryland in the United States Senate. And I'm honored to be a recipient of this year's Congressional Champion Award. I want to thank In Defense of Christians for your efforts to prioritize support of human rights and religious liberty in our foreign policy, and to advocate for Christians and other members of religious minority communities across the Middle East. That mission is deeply bound to our nation's founding promises and principles. America's history as a haven for religious freedom stretches back generations. My home state of Maryland was originally founded by colonists who hoped to establish a safe haven for Roman Catholics who were fleeing religious persecution in England at the time. And I'm pleased that today, Maryland is home to a diverse group of faiths and people who are free to practice their religious beliefs and worship as they choose. We must work together to ensure those same rights extend to people around the world. In the Middle East, Christian communities and other minorities endure serious and ongoing threats and pressure, including efforts to erase their history and religious traditions, and to fan dangerous conspiracies against them to boost populist, nationalist agendas. And we know that has been the case in Turkey under President Erdogan. His government has repeatedly violated international law and human rights in a number of areas, including through the persecution of individuals based on religious faith. We cannot and will not turn a blind eye to Ankara's malign actions and must take a firm stance against conduct that threatens the principles of human rights, religious liberty, equal justice, democracy, and the rule of law. I was pleased that earlier this year, President Biden joined the United States Congress in officially recognizing the Armenian genocide, which resulted in the forced deportation of around 2 million Armenians and the death of nearly 1.5 million men, women, and children during the Ottoman period. President Biden's action was a step in the right direction, but it's also vital that we follow up words with strong deeds. Turkey has repeatedly violated international law and human rights, and we must work in concert with our faithful NATO allies and our EU partners to hold Turkey more accountable. Experience tells us that Turkey and many other countries will respond only when there is a clear price to be paid for their actions. And we can see by his actions that President Erdogan has not gotten the message. Just 1 year ago, Turkey carried out a highly politicized, targeted campaign against several former Byzantine-era churches, which had been preserved for public access for decades as museums by previous Turkish governments going back to modern Turkey's founder, Kemal Ataturk. The historic Hagia Sophia, the Christian center of Byzantium, was for nearly 1,000 years the largest and most important house of Christian worship in the world, and the Monastery of Christ at Kora was one of the most important surviving churches of the 13th and 14th century. Both were turned into mosques by the Turkish government last summer. This high-profile move was a major blow to religious pluralism and tolerance around the world. And it comes amid other indications of ongoing religious intolerance in Turkey, including accelerating the pace of entry bans and deportations of non-Turkish leaders of Protestant congregations, and continued efforts to restrict the ability of minority religious groups to train their clergy. There is no legislative cure-all for those who practice this intolerance of religious freedom. But I am confident that by working together, we can advance our mission of protecting Christians and other religious minorities in the Middle East and around the world, ensuring greater religious freedom and defending human rights. I look forward to continuing to work with IDC in this shared endeavor.
So much, Senator Van Hollen. And right now, it's my honor to introduce to you Mr. Thomas Abraham, member of the IDC Board of Trustees.
I really don't like protocol, and I think this mic maybe is going to cause more problems than anything else. Can you hear me? Can you hear me in the back? Okay, great. Okay, well, I'll use the mic if you insist. I've been asked actually to come up here and speak about a project that started in Australia by a young Lebanese producer who created a movie called Enough: Lebanon in its Darkest Hour. So that I don't mess it up, I'm going to actually read some information about her so that you can get a better perspective. Australian filmmaker Daisy Gideon received the Movie That Matters Award at the Cannes International Film Festival this last July, and I was there for that. That's when I met Daisy, and I was blown away by the trailer that she produced on their movie. I approached her and I said, Daisy, I was born in Lebanon. I'm an American of Lebanese heritage, and I would love to do what I can to help you promote this in the United States and in Lebanon. 2 weeks later, we were in Lebanon together. We were there as part of she actually marched in the August 4th celebration or tribute to the blast, the 1-year anniversary of the blast in Lebanon. So he was born in Lebanon and raised in Australia. Daisy is an award-winning journalist and filmmaker. In Enough, Lebanon's Darkest Hour, the filmmaker and journalist, she takes us on a powerful and personal journey behind the mask of lies and deceptions and into the heart of Lebanon, deep into the historic and philosophical causes, psychological causes behind the erosion and destruction of a country still renowned for its extraordinary beauty and its resilience of its people. This will be the first featured documentary to be released since the Beirut port explosion, which killed 211 people and left 300,000 homeless and caused more than $15 billion in damages. It was the third largest non-nuclear blast in human history. The film features exclusive and controversial interviews with many of the key political leaders at the time, including Lebanese Prime Minister Saad Hariri, July 2019, first interview given to a Western journalist in 5 years, former Minister Gibran Bazil, and prominent Hezbollah Minister Mohammed Fenchi. The last time that he gave an interview was in 2019. And anyway, Daisy calls these leaders in this film, she calls them out to account for the corruption that is destroying the country, that destroyed the country, I should say, denying the people the most basic of services. The reason that I asked for this film to be shown here is because when we do bring this film to the United States, it's going to have to be the Lebanese diaspora and people of Middle East heritage to stand up and do their part to make sure that the message is relayed to Congress, to their senators in their own home communities, to their mayors and to their communities. I just came back from Rome. I was there with my dear friends, and we had an opportunity to meet with the Pope. Something that I walked away was that I realized that we as Christians or people of faith have an obligation, each and every one of us, have an obligation to stand tall and firm against injustice. When we talk about the corruption in our homeland, I hate to say this, but the last 40 years, I believe that every person was accountable for that corruption in Lebanon because they did not stand up, because they did not speak out, because they did not stop the corruption that was happening within themselves and their families, and the way they do business, and the way they take care of each other. I think it's important that Lebanon has a new chance, a new opportunity today to right its wrongs with great leaders and leaderships. The young generation that I saw in Lebanon back in July and August, they've lost hope, seriously have lost hope. And it's going to be up to us individually to make sure that that hope isn't lost, that we do everything we can in the upcoming election to make sure that the diaspora is very strongly involved in making sure that it's an equal, fair election for the people of Lebanon. They want change. I didn't come up here to lecture, but my heart was broken in Lebanon to tears when I spoke to the young generation. They do not want to leave Lebanon. They want to be there. They want to stay there. They want to raise their children. They want to see the red, white, and green flag with pride. And it's our job, our responsibility to make sure that we do our part to save our beloved Lebanon. Thank you.
Dear Lebanon, your location and your diversity put you at the hub between continents and cultures. You have an impressive ability to absorb hardships. Yet you rarely confront the causes of them.
Who the hell is responsible?
I still can't get the images out of my head. The explosion took me reeling back to the days of civil war.
At the end of the war, the warlords were given promises of public money.
We have the same politicians, the same ones killed. They're still here, which is like, what?
You have so much vested interests in the system, which led us to this very tragic situation.
لماذا لم تبادر هيدي المواد المتفجرة? And why didn't the president do anything about it?
I don't know.
Corruption is eating up everything in the country.
We have to buy bottles of water, which costs more than petrol now.
The crazy floating power station.
The system will not be changed from the top.
Elections are the only tool that we have.
I don't believe the voting process is legitimate.
So are you still confident with your decision?
100%.
If we do not fix ourselves, the people will revolt against us.
We Lebanese people are strong. We're very strong, and we're stubborn.
What is your dream for Lebanon?
To become a nation.
We are Lebanese! All of us! Shame on you for dividing us! These politicians, they deserve to be in jail! Enough is enough!
Dear Lebanon, you're too important to let fail. We believe in the idea of Lebanon. The thing is, Lebanon, do you still believe in that idea? This is a question only you can answer.
Wow, that was incredible. Really such a powerful film. Well, ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker comes to us this evening all the way from Lebanon, where he is a Christian community leader, business innovator, and a public servant. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming former member of the Lebanese Parliament, Mr. Namet Frem.
Thank you for this beautiful today event.
Tufi and your team, I really would like to commend you for what you have been doing and what you are doing tonight. By the way, you couldn't have chosen better the date. This is the 21st. This is a solstice. This is the 21st of October of the 21st year of the 21st century. So something good should come out of this day. There is no reason to revisit in depth Lebanon's crisis, violation of sovereignty, the presence of illegal weapons, corruption, the threat of war, a broken political, financial, and economic system that has partly collapsed. Whether this government will be able to implement reforms to save Lebanon remains to be seen. In Lebanon, we work for the best, but plan for the worst. 2 years ago, in September 2019, at this same dinner, I did warn that Lebanon was on the verge of economic and political collapse. You remember? Some said that I exaggerated the threat. Within weeks, collapse began. The recently formed government may or may not solve the most urgent crisis, but it will not be able to solve all of them. Nor do we look to America or the West to solve all of Lebanon's problems. But there are 3 areas where we do urgently need America's help. These areas are neutrality, decentralization, and combating corruption. First, neutrality. I join Patriarch Shrai in his call for Lebanon's government to assert its neutrality. The Lebanese people should not be used as a pawn in regional or global geopolitics. It's not enough to assert neutrality. There must be a plan. American and Western experts should be thinking about how to do this. Some in Washington, though a minority, might believe that the US should help Lebanon to fail. This has already happened in part. What is the plan after this? If that is the extent of strategic thought among certain foreign policy experts, then this is unfortunate. The American people deserve better. The people of Lebanon deserve better. Second, Lebanon's government institutions must decentralize. History shows that states that must decentralize in order to stabilize rarely do so on their own. Bureaucrats and politicians are simply reluctant to reform central administration in order to delegate, deconcentrate, and fundamentally reorder so that local governance will be empowered. More often, politicians and bureaucrats cling to centralized authority until it's too late. And then institutions are rebuilt, slowly, painfully, sometimes with blood. Sometimes it takes centuries. When this happens in history, dark ages often result. Lebanon cannot endure a dark age. Therefore, we must decentralize now. We need the help of American experts, not only in government, but international and consulting experts who have implemented successful programs of subsidiarity. Third, the Lebanese people need America's help to punish those individuals who have stolen from Lebanon's future. You know who they are. We know who they are. The means exist to punish the guilty few, rather than the innocent many. There are many other reforms needed, but these are three vital areas where America and the West can help Lebanon to survive, to once again become a model of pluralism, prosperity, and education in the Middle East. Lebanon's strategic significance on the Eastern Mediterranean is clear to anyone who looks at a map. Certainly, America's competitors, both regional competitors and global competitors, look at the map and can see Lebanon's importance. Lebanon has two unique characteristics that will be vital in the decades to come: energy and water. Lebanon's coastline is the ultimate corridor for a gas pipeline hub for the southern and eastern Mediterranean into Europe. Lebanon is also a huge reservoir of fresh water. Both of these will be of great importance in the years ahead and can help secure Lebanon's future. But perhaps the most important vocation for Lebanon is its cultural mission. Lebanon brought Renaissance to the Middle East centuries ago through its ties to the West. This made it the intellectual and cultural heartland of the Middle East. It was in Lebanon that the first Arab Spring occurred, a peaceful Arab Spring, the Cedar Revolution of 2005, which saw the end of the Syrian regime's occupation of Lebanon. This was only 15 years ago, and how the region has changed since. Today, there is a similar struggle to reclaim Lebanon's sovereignty. The mission of the Christians of Lebanon is to love and serve our neighbors, our countrymen, whatever their religious beliefs. But in order to do this, Christianity must survive. With the help of America and the West, this sovereignty can be achieved. Thank you for your support.
Thank you so much, Shemet. Thank you so much for being here with all of us this evening. Well, now it's time, as promised, for the first of two live panel discussions this evening, and our experts are standing by, ready to answer your questions. Our panelists this evening include Bishop Gregory Mansour, Bishop of the Maronite Catholic Eparchy of St. Maron of Brooklyn and member of the IDC Religious Advisory Board, Chair Nadine Menza, Chair of the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, and a member of the IDC Board of Advisors, Aram Hamprian, Executive Director of the Armenian National Committee of America and member of the IDC Board of Advisors, and Dr. Rita Stefan, Regional Coordinator and Liaison, Equity for Diverse Communities in the Middle East and North Africa, USAID. This discussion this evening will be led by Andrew Dorn, co-founder of IDC and Senior Research Fellow at the Philos Project. Andrew?
Thank you. Thank you. Testing, test. Thank you. Thank you and good evening. Saidna, Bishop Gregory, since you opened and you mentioned that it's important to confront and overcome our fears. I just returned from Lebanon, and there are many fears gripping the country. And at the same time, when you go into the heart of Lebanon, Mount Lebanon, its monasteries, its churches, its villages, you see a strength and a faith there that has survived so many centuries, so many persecutions. And so when I left Beirut and the coastal areas and went to the mountain, I thought, Lebanon is going to survive. Christianity in Lebanon is going to survive. But it's going to require confronting fear. And so in Lebanon, there is a shadow government, a shadow military, a shadow economy that exists apart from the rest of Lebanon. And every time the rest of Lebanon fails, that shadow government, military, that entity grows stronger. Now, the bishops in Lebanon, the Maronite bishops and the patriarch, have increasingly been very courageous in confronting this threat, as have others. And I want to be mindful about the fact that this isn't only a conversation we're having in Washington, D.C., but at the same time, I don't want us to be afraid in naming these threats. And so, with all of that, what is the path ahead, not only for Lebanon, but for the Christians of Lebanon to survive and remain in their homeland?
Thank you, Andrew. So, Christians of Lebanon have had centuries of practice in dealing with every kind of difficulty. You had the Mamluks, you had the Ottomans, and you had the Civil War, and now we have the presence of Hezbollah. And we've been able to deal with all of them. And I think what makes the Christian community so vibrant in Lebanon is because they believe in the vision of Lebanon. For those who don't know the history of Lebanon, in 1919, at 76 years old, Patriarch Patriarch Al-Hayek traveled to Versailles with a group of Christians and Muslims and asked them to carve out of the Middle East Lebanon, with a vision of the borders of Lebanon having a sense that we would include Shiite, Sunni, Druze, and every kind of Christian. That is right after the decimation of the Ottoman Turks, including the Maronites. Why would a man do that? Why didn't he just say, we'll live in our own little walled-in enclave and we'll leave it at that, because we can't trust anybody? But the patriarch did it on purpose. That's a bold statement in the midst of the world today, to say, in the midst of every kind of hatred and self-serving people all over, we believe that a Muslim-Christian conviviality can and is in the best, can survive, and it is in the best interest of Lebanon. That's where I find such an inner strength, because it's not an enclave unto ourselves, but it's a reaching out to the neighbor as an equal, not as someone below or someone dominating, but someone who is eye to eye. So that's why I hope in Lebanon.
Thank you, Sayyidina. Nadine, I saw you nodding. I know you've been to Lebanon, and you deal very generally with religious freedom issues in the region and beyond the Middle East. What would you say for the Christians and other minorities of the Middle East are the greatest challenges with respect to religious freedom?
So you're asking where in the Middle East are the most
Yeah, where in the Middle East would you say are the greatest? So, for example, in the Copts of Egypt face different challenges than the Christians of Lebanon.
You know, I think that answering that question depends on how you're looking at it. I mean, most of the Christians probably you'd have to look at Egypt, and that has such a huge amount of Christians living there. But of course, you know, we're seeing the numbers just leave quickly from Iraq and continue to just go down on how many can live and thrive there. And of course, in Syria and northeast Syria, we've seen them leave. So I think Christians in the Middle East are struggling. They don't have the kind of support that they need. And the U.S. really needs to relook at how we are supporting these communities. I want to shout out USAID because, you know, in the Middle East and particularly the Nineveh Plains, there are homes for them. There's a lot of rebuilding, but the security situation is so terrible they can't live there. You know, so while it takes all the different goals of the U.S. government to hit the mark in order for us to support these communities, so I really feel like broadly through the Middle East, Christianity is struggling, and it's hard to watch, and that's why IDC is so important, because it's really complicated. It's not a simple answer, and they're willing to do the hard work of figuring out what's the best policy for each of these countries.
Thank you, Nadine. Aram, you have been, Anka has been a pioneer in this field of human rights, protecting religious minority communities, ethnic minority communities, and advocating for these communities. And so you've seen over the past several years perhaps a trajectory developing, and Anka's many years of hard work were rewarded earlier this year on April 24th with the recognition of the Armenian genocide at long last and after much work. Congratulations. So what would you say is the trajectory? Do you see more successes as far as reconciling the values of the American people with the power politics, realpolitik of a great power?
The good news is the answer is yes. The bad news is it's going to take a lot of hard work. That's the bottom line. Let me say two words before I dig more into that. Let me say a couple of words. I'm here with Tufik, here with Andrew. They're among the founders, the founding fathers of In Defense of Christians. We've been with them since day one. In Armenian, we would say, Yech Bayrek, you're my brothers. Ngedek, you're my friends. I don't know where IDC starts and where ANC ends. I see us as one family. That's number one. Number two, I've said this before probably at every summit, but I'll say it again. IDC is America's answer. America's answer. America produced IDC. America's answer to a century or more of indifference to the plight of Christians and others abroad. And it was an answer that was needed, and you provided it in a very, very powerful way. And I'm going to expand on that because I think it deserves to be discussed. And all of you here who support the work of IDC, you're right to support IDC, but you're not supporting IDC enough, okay? So add a zero, be as generous as you can. Think about this. Before IDC, there was no shortage of organizations, individuals, tourists in this town, politicians in this town, advocates in this town, who used the word, who deployed the word, should. America should do this. America should do that. Maybe some other countries should do this or should not do that. It's a good word. It's a strong word. It's a moral word. It's an important word, but it's not a political word. What Tufik and Andrew and IDC added to the vocabulary is how. Here's how we're going to do it. Here's the steps we're going to take to do the work of the Lord in the ways of Washington, to do the work of the Lord in the language of legislation. So that when someone comes to you, as very often people in my community, in your community do, and say, how can we confront the powers of this world? They're so powerful. Well, the answer is you become a power yourself. And IDC has done that. And that deserves a round of applause from each and every one of you. They've worked really hard. The staff, every one of them is worth 5 or 10 staffers. I see Sarah here, Rich, Stephen, the rest of the team. Awesome folks. So that's my, forgive me, that was my IDC pitch, because I really feel strongly about it. It builds up in me for literally a year before each summit, and then I have to get it out. So with that being said, I think we're on the right track. I think not because of anything anyone else is doing. Presidents come and go, Congresses come and go. We love our legislative friends. We admire and respect those who serve in the White House. But ultimately, our progress is going to be the result of our sweat. So I think we are making progress. I think that the gap between what we believe and what we do as a country is narrowing. And I think that's largely the result of IDC and the coalitions that we've been able to create.
Thank you, Aram. Rita, if memory serves, you have the good fortune now of serving the communities that your own ancestors come from. And one of the challenges that you may face in the years ahead is that the and I mean specifically serving minority communities in the Middle East to maintain the Middle East's diversity. But there's going to be an emphasis in the years ahead on great power competition. And we see that there is, in America, a fatigue with the Middle East. How are you going to sustain your work in the years ahead, which is very important?
First of all, thank you all. And thank you, my esteemed panelists, for your intervention here. You know, the Middle East is a lot of trouble, but it's also a lot of hope. And we at USAID have not lost hope. We believe in what we're doing. We believe in the impact we're having on the ground. Today, I had a conversation with a group of youth from Saida talking about dialoguing with the other, learning about Christianity, and most of these were Muslim youth, and learning about differences, about coexistence. So yes, there's a lot of fatigue on the macro level. There's a lot of work on the micro level, on the individual level. And our focus right now is to really increase dialogue along with development, and to actually ensure that we're not only protecting minorities as a group, as an enclave, as Bishop said, but actually to create the environment that is tolerant of differences. And this is now where most of our activity for USAID are focusing on, not just in Lebanon, but also in Iraq, in North Africa, Morocco, Yemen. And we have religious minorities everywhere who are part of this tapestry and will continue to be and make what the Middle East is. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita, and thank you for your work. Thank you. And so with that, I think we'll bring session number 1 of the panel to an end. Thank you, esteemed panelists.
What an excellent panel. Thank you all so much. That was so powerful. And at this time, I'd like to invite Tufik back up.
Thank you, Tracy. Since the founding of In Defense of Christians in 2014, our greatest strength was always resided in our strong relationships. The work of In Defense of Christians is enabled by its strong network of passionate supporters on the ground all over the world. This includes clergy and laity alike. In the past year, we've lost a number of our closest friends who have gone home to the Lord. This group includes true defenders of Christians and Christianity around the world, selfless leaders in their own right. His Eminence, Mor Silvanos Boutros Nami, Archbishop of the Syriac Orthodox Church. He was the Archbishop of Aleppo during the civil war in Syria that worked tirelessly to help especially the Syrian orphans. He passed, he was around, he's in his mid-40s, I believe, at a young age. The second person that we're honoring this evening is my friend, the Honorable Joseph Buhacker, the presiding judge of the 10th Judicial District of Alabama. I've known Judge Buhacker since I arrived to this great country about 35 years ago. He's always worked for the sake of Christians and Christianity in Lebanon and the Middle East, tirelessly. For 35 years, I've learned a lot from him. He was a great policy person, policy maker. I've learned a lot from him since we first met. He was the president of many organizations, including the American Lebanese League. That was a very strong lobby in Washington, D.C. during that period. When when the U.S. government did not want to receive or hear even about President-elect Bashir Gemayel, Joseph Buhacker lobbied for Bashir Gemayel, and he was received as a president in the United States during the Reagan presidency. And my friend Joe, which we will all miss, has also served on the National Alliance of Lebanese Americans, has testified in Congress through the years, wrote so many policy papers, and testified in Congress and worked and met several US presidents. But he was the kindest person you'll ever meet, and with a strong personality and a policy man, a family man, a great father, a great husband, and he was our IDC policy chairman. We will dearly miss him. The third person that we're honoring tonight, a person that I've known over 40 years. His name is Masoud Ashar. He is lifelong champion and defender of Lebanon's Christian community. I had the privilege to meet him in the 80s. He was a very close friend and brother to me as well. He was an honorable fighter. He was behind defense force during the Lebanese Civil War, which defended Beirut and the Christian area, and the 100-Day War in Beirut, and kicked out the Syrian army out of Beirut. He was a hero, a great dad. After being a fighter, and the Chief of Staff for the Lebanese forces. He retired from the forces when there were differences of opinions, and he was always for unity. He decided to help people on the ground for humanitarian purposes, people that were on his side or the opposite side. He helped every single person that is in need, especially in Ashrafiyeh. He's a great father and for 4 great ladies and a great husband. Mr. Ashur Sargon Eskaraya, he's the president of the Assyrian Aid Society of Iraq. He has also worked tirelessly for Iraqi Christians on the ground, visiting homes, camps, and working tirelessly to help the Assyrian and other Christian communities in Iraq. And last is Mr. Andrew Walter. We have worked together with the Knights of Columbus. He was the vice president of the Knights of Columbus. We partnered together in 2016, and if you remember, we passed the 2016 genocide recognition of the Christians and Yazidis and other minorities in Iraq and Syria. We worked closely. I see here my old team. I call them team because every single person that worked with us, they were team players. They were not just getting a job with us. So he worked tirelessly for this, and we had the recognition. And because of his work, a lot of aid now is floating to Iraq and Syria. So we will not forget him. We will keep him in our prayers. And on the humanitarian side, he was able to help with tens of millions of dollars through the Knights of Columbus to help the genocide survivors in Iraq and Syria. He will always be in our prayers. And when he passed, he was the president and COO of EWTN News. So this evening, I'd like to pay special tribute to these close friends and express our sincere thanks to their families and communities. We will not forget their contributions and sacrifices of your departed loved ones. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in this solemn commemoration.
نحن جئنا من سوريا نحمل صوت أطفالنا الأبرياء الذين راحوا ضحية هذه الحرب العشوائية التي طالت كل البيوت والتي مست كل الناس ودمرت البنى التحتية في البلد. فطبعا اليوم جئنا نحمل صرخة الأطفال الذين يناشدوننا ويناشدون العالم بعبارة جميلة جدا تحمل في هذه العبارة معاني كثيرة. أعطونا السلام، أعطونا الطفولة، أي أعطونا أن نعيش الحرية والأمان وأن نعيش حياتنا في سوريا كما يعيش باقي الأطفال في العالم.
On behalf of my mother Maggie, my sister Maria, and brother Louis, and the greater Buhacker family, I would like to take just a minute to talk about my father Joseph Buhacker. To describe all of the work he has done on behalf of the Christians in Lebanon and the greater Middle East would take longer than the time allowed, but can be summed up in one story. In 1992, he, along with Mr. Batlini and the rest of the NAWA Policy Committee, published a series of policy papers outlining how to set up a functional and equitable government in Lebanon. In 2019, when the economy collapsed and there was rioting in the streets, he got the call to dig up these documents. He had just been granted his Lebanese citizenship, but had also been recently diagnosed with lung cancer. Always eager to help, I was tasked with scanning the documents and to be edited. I asked, though, why he thought this time would be different. He said maybe it won't be, but it is your patriotic duty to try. Most of my father's adult life was spent as an advocate for the people that could not advocate for themselves. It is our hope that this legacy can live on through the work of the IDC.
Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Louis Buhacker. I come from Birmingham, Alabama. My home is in Zahli, Lebanon. Well, my name there is Joseph Yes Labuaka, but they have a hard time with that in Alabama, so we just call it Joseph Louis Buhacker.
Recovered my citizenship today, glad to go back to Lebanon, to return back to them everything they've given to me. And I encourage all the Lebanese people who live throughout the whole world, who've been very successful in their lives. You can't have full success until your home has been restored. So do what I did and go back and rebuild Lebanon. And what's the phrase? Raja, Raja, and the word is Yatammar Lebanon.
I'm going to talk about a friend, an exceptional friend, and a beautiful soul. Masoud al-Ash'ar, nicknamed Pussy, an iconic figure of the Lebanese resistance. In 1975, when the war hit, Masoud was 19, 20 years old, a student with dreams, with big dreams. He decided to take up arms and defend his countrymen and the values he believed in. He led from the front in all battles, in Beirut, in the mountains, in the north. He was distinguished by his courage, his bravery, his dignity, but mainly with his faith that he was serving a cause that was greater than himself.
نعم، المقاومة اللبنانية كانت أكثريتها مسيحيين، بس التحق فيها غير مسيحيين، وعندنا شهداء من كل الطوائف، مثل ما قال الرئيس بشير جميل، نحن قاومنا كمسيحيين بس دفعنا عن كل لبنان.
I would like to thank IDC for their gracious invitation and congratulate them for their worthy efforts. As you all know too well, the economic situation has reached a disastrous all-time low in Lebanon. For many suffering families, it is hell on earth. Together with friends of Masoud, who were diligently working with him, I am devoting my time and energy to his social mission, looking after every family and every person that knocks our door, providing them with food boxes, assisting them with tuition fees for schooling, securing the needed medications, all while preserving the values of respect, dignity, discretion, and tolerance that were the hallmark of Masoud's life. The government has unfortunately failed to secure the basic rights and needs of its people. So it falls upon us, who were more fortunate, to alleviate the suffering of others together. Our mission is to continue Masoud's battle on behalf of those in need. This is how we can honor his legacy. Thank you all, and God bless.
Hello, I am Antoine Bourani, President of Assyrian Aid Society of America. It is with a heavy heart that we are bringing you this message of Rabbi Ashur Skaria's passing, who was the President of Assyrian Aid Society of Iraq for 11 years. He touched the lives of thousands of Assyrians, Yazidis, and other communities in Iraq.
The Syrian Christians in Middle East in the last 100 years have been forcibly removed. Hence losing rights to the lands, territories and resources, also losing rights to the conservation and protection of their environment, including the protective capacity.
His achievements were numerous: building roads and shelter, finding shelter and food for displaced due to ISIS, providing food and basic necessities, posting lights to the streets and roads, upgrade the agriculture and irrigation channels, maintain and expand the Assyrian schools from 1st to 12th grade, creating shops for purpose of creating jobs, having a mobile clinic. He earned the Assyrian language and preserved the diverse mosaic fabric of Iraq's society by providing security to all ethnicity in the region.
Well, at this time, we're excited to bring you this evening messages from Senator Todd Young, Representatives Tim Burchett, Ted Deutsch, and David Cicilline.
Hello, I'm grateful to be speaking to you and to be accepting your Congressional Champion Award. I want to thank the leadership of IDC and recognize my fellow recipients of this award in the Senate, Chairman Menendez, Ranking Member Risch, and Senator Van Hollen. We've tried to make the Senate Foreign Relations Committee a place where competing ideas are heard and where bipartisan agreements can be forged. Few areas require more diligent work than the need to protect religious minorities and the freedoms of conscience and practice. That's why during my time in the Senate, I've sought to shed light on conflict and attacks on religious freedom in Yemen, Syria, Lebanon, and Iran. Just to name a few, in these places and in conflict zones around the world, we often see religious minorities become some of the first victims of oppression and violence. These attacks on such a fundamental right, the right to faith and worship, should call us all to action. This is why I've been proud to reach across the aisle to be a voice for the voiceless and to provide aid to the powerless. The ongoing advocacy and on-the-ground work that IDC conducts serves as a rallying cry to the entire Congress. Thank you for all that you do. I look forward to continuing to hear your ideas and working together to protect religious freedom for Christians throughout the world. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Congressman Tim Burchett from Tennessee's 2nd Congressional District. I'm incredibly honored to be an In Defense of Christians congressional champion. And you know, as Americans, we're fortunate enough to practice our faith no matter what we believe, but sadly our brothers and sisters in Christ in the Middle East face abuse because of their faith. I support your organization's mission to raise awareness for this issue among American lawmakers. During my first term in Congress, the IDC worked with Congress to draft a resolution officially recognizing the Armenian genocide. I was so proud to support that resolution, and I appreciate the IDC's hard work to make this effort a success. Looking forward to the future, I hope that the Hezbollah in Lebanon they would disarm themselves in accordance with United Nations Resolution 1559 and 1701. A violent and heavily armed Hezbollah is a threat to the region, and I hope the United Nations begins to enforce these resolutions. Again, thank y'all so much for this award.
Good evening, everyone. Let me apologize at the outset that I'm unable to join you live at this summit. I am, however, deeply honored by and appreciative of this award and the opportunity that you've given me to make a few remarks. I also want to congratulate In Defense of Christians for your incredible work in a city that is already filled to the brim with advocacy organizations and think tanks, you identified an underserved need and have become, in just a handful of years, an indispensable voice in the conversation regarding religious freedom, and particularly Christian communities in the Middle East. As someone whose Jewish faith is central to me and my identity, but who grew up in an area with a very, very small Jewish community, IDC's cause is understandably important and personal to me. I'm also chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Subcommittee on the Middle East, North Africa, and Global Counterterrorism. And in that role, I often encounter viewpoints that treat religious pluralism as though it is a concept that is foreign to the Middle East. But what you know is that that's simply not true. Religious pluralism, like the constellation of Abrahamic traditions themselves, is genuinely native to the Middle East. What has happened is the large-scale manufacturing and manipulation of religious bigotry and intolerance as an instrument of power. Iran, for example, is a great orchestrator of religious intolerance in the region, using proxies across the Middle East to galvanize local populations against vulnerable communities in order to try to gain political advantage. Iran-backed militias in Iraq have obstructed the return of Christians and Yazidis to their native villages following their escape from genocide. In Yemen, Iran-backed Houthi forces drove out that country's tiny remaining Jewish population. And nowhere is Iran's maligned influence felt more acutely than in Lebanon, where Iran's proxy Hezbollah functions as an unaccountable shadow force that seeks to bend Lebanon into alignment with Iran's aspirations for regional domination, to the detriment of the Lebanese people's security, cultural heritage, and economic viability, as the ongoing collapse demonstrates. Lebanon's rapidly deteriorating crises are largely the consequence of the country's political gridlock, pervasive corruption of which Hezbollah is massively guilty, and the insidious effect of Hezbollah's ever-present threat to drag the country into civil war or regional war if it doesn't get its way. Resolving Lebanon's problems will require wholesale reform. It's going to need greater accountability and transparency and anti-corruption measures, none of which Hezbollah will entertain with any seriousness. Just consider the fate of prominent Lebanese activist Lachlan Slim, whose criticisms of Hezbollah led to his assassination this past February. Or look at the threats against the life of Maronite patriarch Cardinal Rai after he recently had the courage to assert that an armed subnational group should not be allowed to unilaterally launch a war with neighboring countries. So I strongly support the Biden administration taking measures to go after corruption among Lebanese officials, sending the important signal that we will use the power of our financial system to root out corruption and promote stability. At the same time, the consequences of further deterioration are extremely worrisome and must be avoided. I'm particularly sensitive to the fact that a breakdown of the state would likely strengthen the influence of U.S. adversaries in Lebanon, including Iran and Syria and Hezbollah. So it is to that end that earlier this summer, I called on the administration to ramp up our already strong support for the Lebanese armed forces, which remains a vitally important counterweight to Hezbollah. And I'm pleased that the administration has done so. The Lebanese armed forces have earned our continued support as they struggle to protect Lebanese sovereignty during this acute economic crisis. Allow me to conclude, if I may, by noting that Lebanon demonstrates how our support for religious freedom abroad is intertwined with our broader national security objectives. This is also the intersection of IDC's work, and it will be a significant focus of my attention moving forward as the chairman of the Middle East Subcommittee. I'm grateful for the opportunity to spend some time with you tonight. I thank you for this honor. I so look forward to working together on these issues in the years ahead. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the evening.
Friends, I want to congratulate In Defense of Christians on its 2021 summit and thank IDC for its steadfast commitment to human rights and its relentless advocacy on behalf of the oppressed. More than ever, IDC's mission to defend the rights of religious minorities and other persecuted peoples is indispensable. Across many areas of the Middle East, Christians and other vulnerable populations face renewed threats of violence and persecution. Both state and non-state actors have instigated harassment campaigns, have seized churches and other religious sites, and have promoted violence against Christians. As power vacuums created opportunities for religious extremists, Christians and other religious minorities were forced to flee the Middle East and North Africa, leaving behind homes, families, and histories. The coming days and months offer us a renewed opportunity to partner together on behalf of those that continue to live under the yoke of oppression. As many of my colleagues and I work to recenter human rights as a core tenet of American foreign policy, we must commit to finding solutions that allow Christians, Muslims, Jews, and all others to live and worship in peace. I'm grateful for the work the IDC does, and I'm privileged to call you all partners in the pursuit of a more just and humane world. Congratulations on a successful summit, and I look forward to working with you over the coming year.
And via the YouTube live comments and section. And our expert panel will be back shortly to answer your questions. Right now, it is my honor to introduce to you our next speaker, the President and CEO of Open Doors USA, Dr. David Curry.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Thank you to FEEC, to IDC, to all of you, all of the important people here. Whenever I'm in a group like this, I can't compete with your intelligence, so I'm just going to keep it simple. I think you can divide the world into two different parts, two different groups, dog people and cat people. And I am a dog person. And I can see we have a few cat people here. But I was watching a dog the other day. I went out for a walk, and I saw somebody walking a dog, a big, black, shaggy dog. And it was so well behaved. It was on a leash. And as soon as I saw that dog, because I love dogs so much, I just said, "Hey, little buddy." As soon as I did that, this dog got up, he started prancing around and dancing around. And in that moment, I realized that's exactly what happens to us. People put us on a leash, they want to control you, but inside, people want to dance. They want to experience a vibrant, free expression of their faith. And so I think we should be encouraging each other, like I was encouraging that puppy to get up and be a dog and go crazy. That's what we can do together today, is to encourage each other in our faith. Now that's important because there are places like Ethiopia where some of the persecution on our research is intramural. It's Orthodox against evangelicals and evangelicals against other factions, and that shouldn't be the case. We need to challenge each other and our friends around the world that if you understand and believe in the life, death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus, then we're brothers and sisters. Am I right? I think we are. Yep. In 1973, the last church in Afghanistan was torn down, and they tore it out in such a way, they got underneath the foundation because they had heard that there was an underground church, and they imagined that it was actually underground. The church is still there. There's thousands of them. Our team is still there. As soon as the pastor of that church left July of 73, Brother Andrew, our founder, went into Afghanistan and was baptizing people, and the work of Jesus goes on in Afghanistan. A lot of us have spent some time making sure that people can get out of the country. Now we need to start thinking about how we can get bold, courageous Jesus people back in there that do not count their lives so precious that they would not be willing to lose it for the name of Jesus if they're so called. That is a challenge for the next generation that we can tackle together. And I could go on, there's so many things, but I just want to say thank you to IDC and everyone here, and Open Doors considers you brothers and sisters. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Curry. Thank you for what you do. And I love that analogy, dog and cat people. That was great. All right, well, as promised, I think we're going to have our panel of experts back up. Okay, I just want to double check. We're going to keep going with our program here. And they, of course, are going to be providing commentary and analysis on tonight's remarks and discussing a variety of important topics, including saving Lebanon from Hezbollah and Iranian influence, holding Turkey accountable for its persecution of Christians domestically and internationally, protecting Christians from genocide in Africa and Afghanistan, and of course, respecting the human rights of Coptic Christians in Egypt. Andrew?
Thank you. I believe, yes, we'll go without Rita. Saidna, I'll begin with you. Congressman Deutsch made reference to the threat against Cardinal Rai. You began your remarks today remembering your two brother bishops who went missing in Aleppo several years ago. Hi, Rita. Not at all. And so your profession is an extremely dangerous one. But the Patriarch has now been threatened kind of indirectly a few times now. This is a concern, I think, for many Christians, Catholics and Christians, and all people of goodwill around the world watching the situation, because we've seen for so many years people like yourself, bishops, priests, men of the cloth, targeted by extremists. How concerned should we be?
Thank you, Andrew. It's a concern, but it doesn't deter us. We're used to it, I'm sad to say. But the Patriarch is not afraid, and neither are his bishops, myself included. The whole name of martyr means a witness, someone who witnesses to the death and resurrection of Christ. And so, no matter what it takes, we continue that. I liked David's comments about we have to find a way to get Christians back into Afghanistan now. I hate to see a world without the presence of Christians, even if we're a minority. So, when a Christian, especially a churchman, makes a statement that he knows will not be popular, he still does it. And that's a beautiful quality. It got the two bishops of Aleppo kidnapped, but I don't think they would do anything different. And the Christians of Iraq, when Pope Francis went there, he was moved to the deepest part of his soul, not by the persecution of Christians. We're used to that. He was moved by the forgiveness of some of those Christians towards their persecutors. And it enabled him to redouble his efforts to to work for justice and peace. So, sorry to say we're used to it. We're not afraid of it. The Armenians are good examples of it. One day it would be wonderful to write the stories of all those martyrs and their personal bravery before their persecutors. But for us, brothers and sisters, that doesn't mean we just lay down and die and we just give up. We must advocate. We have to do our share to stand up and say, for a Muslim, you have a right to believe as you believe. For a Yazidi or a Jew or a Christian, you have a right to be in the presence of God unafraid. So that's why I love the efforts, the ecumenical effort and the interfaith effort that so many in this room share in.
Thank you, Said. Thank you. Nadine, on that note of religious pluralism and making religious pluralism a reality, you've spent a lot of time in northeastern Syria. You have a lot of experience on the ground there. What did you see, and what are your reflections about that, and what do you how do you think the realities there should be reflected in U.S. foreign policy?
Sure, thanks for the question. So I was blessed to be able to spend about 7 weeks on the ground there in the last year, and what most people know the story, right, of the Syrian Democratic Forces being our allies on the ground defeating the ISIS caliphate. What most people don't know is while they were liberating areas from ISIS, they were setting up self-governance, not their governance, self-governance, where everyone had, regardless of your gender, religion, or your ethnicity, you had the same right at a seat at the table. And so what you have is you have co-chairmen that are a man and a woman. They're always a different ethnicity or religion. So you have like co-chairs that are an Arab, a Kurd, and then a vice chairman that's a Christian and a Turkmen. Or it's always a combination. It's really interesting. So I was able to see how they built this governance, and that's really the key to what these religious freedom and gender equality that you're seeing in Northeast Syria. So I think that the U.S. government has looked away at, first of all, Turkey coming in and invading because that gave them a responsibility to do something. But they've also looked away at the governance because it's so exceptional, then again, they would be required to do something about it and to support it. So I think things are changing. I see it on the Hill changing. I see it in the administration changing. So I think what the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom has recommended that we lift sanctions because we always recommend sanctions on those who violate religious freedom. Let's lift it in an area where they have excellent conditions. And right now you see Turkey weaponizing water against them and trying to shut them down economically. And so we have an opportunity right now to go in there and lift the load. So Christians can stay, Yazidis can stay, they can build a future. And so what we're seeing right now in Northeast Syria is they're at this precipice where they can go one of two ways. They can become an aid economy, or they can become a commerce economy. And if we lighten the load, they have 80% of the oil in Syria, they have fertile soil, they can build an economy. But if we let Turkey continue to do what they're doing, we're going to have to start providing aid and start bringing in the World Food Program, and they're going to go a different way. So I think the U.S. has an opportunity here to do the right thing, and it would give Christians, Yazidis, and other religious minorities an opportunity to be able to stay and build a future there.
A quick follow-up, if I may, Nadine, touching on another security partner in the region. The most numerous Christian community is the Coptic Christian community of Egypt, and yet the United States, despite significant foreign and military aid, has been unable to persuade the Egyptian government to take the appropriate steps to implement policies that will lead to equal citizenship for Coptic Christians. What can the U.S. government do, if anything, to persuade the Egyptian government to give equal citizenship to its Copts and to all minorities?
The U.S. has so much power, and they have relationships with all these other countries that have so much power. So to tie aid to benchmarks is a fair thing, and they have all the power to do that. And you even see how countries like Uzbekistan, where they've put together a roadmap and had benchmarks to move on this roadmap. And maybe that wasn't the U.S., that was more an international community. But you could bring countries together and say, we're all going to invest money. We're all going to look at what the president needs. He needs a fuller economy. He needs all sorts of support. Have both the negative things available to pull aid away if they don't match benchmarks, but also the positive things. And come alongside countries like Egypt and really have goals for how to bring them to these benchmarks, rather than having these vague recommendations that don't mean anything. And I think that they'll engage with us because we're the United States. We just don't play that card enough.
And on that note, we will go to Aram Hamparian, who has strong feelings on the question of a lot of experience with the U.S. Talking a certain game on human rights, but failing to live up to it when realpolitik enters into the equation. So, Aram, the current administration, even as recently as today, has reiterated that it will put human rights and democracy at the center of its policies. How is it going to do that, and do you think it will succeed?
It's a very good question. Very good question. I'll answer it with one of my kids' favorite movies, The Wizard of Oz. The Wizard of Oz is a story about a young girl who thinks somebody is going to solve her problems, but ultimately she finds that she can solve the problems herself. And that's our story. So when President Biden or any other president says, I'm going to center human rights, or I'm not going to be like the last guy who, was a hypocrite. I'm going to be the guy who sets it right. Just take that as a call to action. Take that as a call for us to do stuff and not to think that others will do things for us. That's, I think, the smart way to do it. And if there's a lesson to be learned from the ANCA, it's from our mistakes and all the stumbles we've had along the way. But you just keep fighting and you keep trying. Tonight, for example, Congresswoman Spear returned to the House floor to consider some amendments to the National Defense Authorization Act, some of which she authored, that say basically, for example, as an Armenian, I'll say this. If Azerbaijan is going to kill Christian Armenians, it's not going to do so with American dollars. If Turkey is going to kill Armenian Christians, the drones that do the killing are not going to have U.S. parts. That's a hard thing to do, but you got to do it, and you fight it out. I don't know if we're going to win or lose tonight. I don't know, but you step in the ring, right? So I think that there was a time, I think, in our evolution as a community when we looked to the other person, the leader, so-called leader, to do something and to get something done, but that's not the answer. The answer is in our own hearts.
Thank you, Aram. So, Rita, as you know, there are so many heartbreaking stories coming out of, especially the Middle East, but around the world, in the work that you do. But there are also positive stories, and those often don't get the fair hearing that they ought to get. Could you share with us now, as we close out, one or two stories of hope, positive stories from the work that you've done, and yeah.
Absolutely, and we have plenty of success stories. The echo is amazing. I want to not just talk about Iraq and northern Iraq and how much we've done, and not just the United States, it's really the world has come together first for immediate intervention and repatriation of many Christians and Yazidis in the Nineveh plains. But also till today, we are working with those who repatriated on infrastructure, on water, schools, jobs, even mental health assistance we're providing for them, so we can ensure that they have all they need to succeed and to stay and to prosper. I want to talk also about those who leave. They're the refugees. And those suffer double-sided stories, because first they leave their home, and so their economic hardship, their national hardship, and then they're strangers and not allowed to work. And we have an amazing story in Jordan where we actually have one of the Iraqi refugees who's able to make cheese and sell it to a pizza place that gets featured. And all of this is with US assistance. In Tunisia, we are funding this program called Al-Talaqi. And I was touched when I spoke with the Christians who are in Tunisia. These are not French. These are Tunisian Christians who are fighting for their faith and fighting for recognition as citizens. And we are providing them the forum to dialogue with other religious leaders and conservative Tunisians and support from the government so they can express their faith. So there are many stories of things that we are doing, very little money, but taking us very, very far. And I want to say, as a steward of taxpayers' dollars, I take it with pride that every penny we spend in the Middle East is optimized, used efficiently and effectively. Thank you.
Thank you. Saidna, please.
If I may, to follow up on Nadine and Rita's comments. Very good NGOs, when they give money, they write it as a grant with all these details that must be completed. Why can't we do that with our U.S. aid? Number one. Number two, I've had the grace of working with Catholic Relief Services throughout the world. We went to many places. I'm saying this also as an American. Those places are so proud of America's generosity. We do all these creative ways to help people pick themselves, not just to give them, but to give them an opportunity to give themselves and others around them. It's the economy of, what did you say, the difference between a commerce economy and or an aid economy. America is the world leader in creative ways of helping people come up from their bootstraps. So let's redouble our effort. Thank you, IDC. Let's push the American government to continue this wonderful work of USAID and so many ways in which we give aid to other places, but let's tie it to metrics that are measurable, that share our values.
And Tufik, I told you that I will be helping Lebanon. We are now signing an award to help religious and ethnic minorities who are victims of the blast. This is going to be extending right now.
Thank you, Rita. Thank you, Saidna. Thank you, Nadine. Thank you, Aram. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, panel. Excellent. At this time, I'd like to welcome up Representative French Hill to say a few words.
Good evening. It's been a late night, but a good night. I feel the warmth of freedom in this room, literally. My name is French Hill, and I'm delighted to represent Central Arkansas in the House. We've had a late night of votes, and I'm sorry I couldn't be with you earlier. I want to thank my friend Tufik Baklini for the invitation. It's good to see my friend from Lebanon. And it's a great honor to have been one of IDC's congressional champions in 2019. And I have the beautiful recognition, that slice of a cedar of Lebanon, in my office at the Capitol. My office is also home of an icon of the 21 Copts murdered by ISIS on a Libyan beach. Since the earliest days of our republic, America has been a beacon for religious liberty, And religious liberty has been at the heart of our governing principles domestically in our Constitution, as well as a key point in our foreign policy, Republican or Democratic presidents. In May, I wrote a letter to President Biden and was joined by a bicameral, bipartisan set of senators and congressmen, urging him to ensure that he appointed a new ambassador from the United States for religious freedom to take the place of our very favored, very active, very successful Sam Brownback, who did an outstanding job in that capacity. And I was delighted to learn that President Biden nominated Rashid Hussain in late July, who's a very experienced diplomat with experience in this area of religious freedom. A Senate-confirmed individual in this position is critical to Americans' foreign policy and our moral leadership in this arena of religious freedom. As we look across the globe, as documented by the Church of England's Bishop of Truro, Philip, there is no group now more persecuted than Christians. Seeing my friend Imad Frame here from Lebanon and his efforts to build a better Lebanon causes me to have a lot of emotion. He's a good man in a tough job. And Congressman Fortenberry and I tried to persuade President Obama to appoint a special envoy for Lebanon, and we tried to persuade President Trump to do the same. It's tough work, but we're glad that you're leading it, and we're in your camp to try to have a strong and better outcome for the people of Lebanon. Thank you. The ongoing conflict and killings in Nigeria's Middle Belt resulted in the U.S. State Department designating Nigeria now as one of the world's 10 worst abusers of religious freedom, where Boko Haram and killing and kidnapping Christians. And this should strike fear at the heart of not only Christians, but all freedom-loving people, that Africa's largest country could be torn apart in this way. And if you think there's a refugee challenge today in the European Union, we need to work hard to bring peace and solidarity for Christians in Nigeria. In China, they've closed churches, arrested pastors, rewritten scripture. In Pakistan, the case of Asia Bibi went internationally viral, with Bibi as a Christian woman who faced a death threat after being acquitted of blasphemy in Pakistan. In 2019, Sri Lanka, targeting of Christians was a motivation for the 2019 Easter bombings by Easter jihadists. In North Korea, Christians are in the same category as spies and political dissidents and have faced torture, imprisonment, and even execution. In Muslim-majority countries around the world, there's the use of blasphemy laws to silence dissent, criticism, and debate towards their Christian populations. As many of you know, I've dedicated a lot of my time in Congress in supporting the Coptic Christians in Egypt. In this Congress, I've introduced House Resolution 117, and we're busy recruiting co-sponsors. Your help in that effort is always appreciated. Despite the good work and goodwill of Egyptian President el-Sisi to promote religious tolerance amongst his people, in many provinces, the State Department reports that there remains a culture of impunity where Copts are routinely attacked, churches burned, and families harassed. The perpetrators are not prosecuted. And I encourage the central government in Cairo to take action to bring balance and serve as an example to a more intolerant radical elements, particularly in the rural parts of Egypt, particularly Minya province. We've seen most recently the Biden administration use one of its tools to hold Egypt accountable, where it withheld $130 million of the $300 million in aid to Egypt because of recent human rights concerns. I'm hopeful through these actions and by working of the House of Representatives and passing HRES 117, that we can demonstrate through action to our Coptic brothers and sisters that the U.S. government stands with them. It's always a pleasure to be with this group. We're grateful to you, Andrew, for co-founding this important organization in the capital city and your work around the world. And I want to thank all of you for the invitation and apologize for my late arrival. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, Representative Hill, and thank you for what you are doing. We appreciate it. The Charles Malik Rights Award of God is an award, and it's awarded to public servants who demonstrate meritorious service over the course of their career to the cause of human rights for persecuted Christians in the Middle East and around the world, and the preservation of such Christian communities. Ladies and gentlemen, presenting this award tonight is Tufik Baklini.
Dr. Haddad, it is my honor and pleasure to present my good friend, someone that has worked tirelessly for religious freedom and for Christians and Christianity in the Middle East, Africa, and globally. In defense of Christians is honored to have Chair Nadine Menza as our Cedars of God Award. And this is from the cedars, made from the Cedars of God from Lebanon, presented by IDC's 2021 honoree, Chair Nadine Menza, Chair for the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom. With extreme gratitude for your focus on religious freedom and its vital role in combating Christian persecution around the world, we thank you for all that you have done for the persecuted and for the protection and preservation of Christians and Christianity in the Middle East. The righteous shall flourish like the palm tree and grow like a cedar in Lebanon. 92:12.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. First of all, I just want to say how humbled I am and honored, and I really feel like I'm just doing what's before me, so thank you. Thank you. It's especially memorable because I just visited the Cedars of Lebanon this past August, and it was really a spectacular place, so it means a lot for me to receive this year. And, you know, I want to just thank In Defense of Christians for the amazing support and partnership over the last couple of years. I've spent most of my years in my career behind the scenes, and so I'm still more comfortable there doing the work. But, you know, came a point where there were things that weren't being said that needed to be said, and I kind of was forced to come out, and I thank you for helping make that easier by coming alongside me. You know, there has been a decent amount of opposition to some of the work I've done in the past couple of years, which has been daunting, especially when it's nation states and those who are aligned with them. And I want to clarify something about that I do welcome robust debates in questioning, and even people that have a different point of view. I don't consider that opposition. That's how we get to good policy. But I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. But I simply want to say that I couldn't stand without the support of IDC, my friends, my family there, you know, Tofik, Stephen, Richard, Sarah. Of course, I see Peter that left not long ago, way back there, Christina, others, and of course, my fellow advisory board members. I'm amazed at your dedication to the persecuted church and the professionalism and integrity you bring to everything that you do. I also appreciate the support of Patriot Voices and the other organizations I've worked with. And USURF, of course. You know, USURF is a special place where we don't allow partisanship to interfere with our advocacy for religious freedom. And that is also another important part of IDC. These are not partisan issues, and we should never let them become that. So I thank you for that. In the past year while we've been on lockdown, I've been fortunate to spend the last about a couple of months on the ground in places like, as you heard, Northeast Syria, Iraq, and Lebanon this summer. I can't stress how important it is to go and just listen. I know not everyone can always do that, and I certainly couldn't do that in different seasons of my life, but I'm thankful I can do that now, and I thank those of you that are willing to listen when I return. It really seems there are two different groups when it comes to religious freedom, two different universes. There's the Washington, D.C. policy world, and then there's the ground. Washington matters. It's where policy is determined and implemented. Think tanks, Congress, White House, of course, they implement the policy we're talking about. All these play an important role on finding that right place forward, but Washington is only as good as how it understands what is happening on the ground and how their policies impact not just the geopolitical landscape, but the people that live there. We've all seen the results of when Washington gets it wrong. By being in a fog about the realities on the ground, like in Afghanistan, or by looking away and refusing to acknowledge the truth, like with what Turkey has done. So we simply can't allow Washington to ignore the realities on the ground or just look away when things get hard. Lebanon is hard, but there may be no easy way forward, but there is a way forward, and we have to find it and fight for it. Turkey is hard. They're a NATO ally. But there is a way to keep them in check, but we're just not doing that right now. You know, currently, in the last few weeks, they've been bombing Assyrian villages in the Khabur River Valley, killing civilians and forcing some of the last survivors of the ISIS genocide to flee. They just bombed a hospital in Sinjar within the last few months, killing civilians. And these civilians were former genocide survivors. Sorry, Turkey, but that is not fighting the PKK. That looks more like targeting religious minorities. And of course, Northeast Syria is hard. You have Turkey, Russia, Assad, Iran all on the ground. But it's important that we get this policy right. And the other thing about Northeast Syria I wanted to mention is, you know, the other thing we get wrong is we focus so much on building these security systems in these countries, like Afghanistan, for instance, that we look away at the governance, which is really the most important part if we really want to preserve religious freedom and human rights. And so if we want to stop this elusive forever wars like we talk about in Syria, the key really is governance. That's how we hold the ground we won so we don't have to come back again. And Northeast Syria has built that in the autonomous administration of Northeast Syria. So if we want to stop going back again, we need to be investing in governance that's authentic, that's built by the people, not necessarily by us. And Iraq, of course, is hard. But we have a responsibility to the Christians, Yazidis, and other religious minorities to continue to fight for them. So, of course, I could go on and on about how hard all these other areas are, but they're still worth us being there and fighting for them. So one of the most important things about IDC is this. They connect people on the ground and real information from the ground with decision makers in Congress and the administration. And that is how we get it right. And I think that is why I immediately was in synergy with you guys, because I appreciated that. And that is why people in the ground respect you and people in Congress respect you in the administration, because you're able to bring that all together. So I really dedicate this award to IDC, and I just look forward to continuing to work with you to better advocate for our brothers and sisters on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Menza. And you are an advisor on our board, and we always take into account all of your advice. Thank you as always. I've heard our Bishop Mansour, talking about forgiveness, and which is a great thing. And once I think we were together, and one of our cardinals was speaking about how we should love our enemies and, and forgive. So I told the cardinal, I do love our enemies, and I love them to death. He was happy. I told him, no, it's the Lebanese way of love them to death. So we depend on your prayers, and I will continue to love our enemies to death. In 2014, we decided not to remain silent. If you are silent in times of injustice, then you are complicit. We decided to be the voice of the voiceless and continue to fight on every Christian's behalf and every persecuted person, if it's a Yazidi or otherwise, and be the voice of the voiceless. Talking about Sayyidina martyrdom, for 1600 years, we've been martyred in Lebanon. And we will continue to fight our fight. I could have been one of them. I wasn't afraid. We had to fight the fight. You saw my friend Masoud Ashar. I mean, we're all college students, and we had to fight for our freedom, fight for our existence, and we will continue to fight. Now we're fighting here in Washington, D.C. for Lebanese, for Egyptians, for Afghanis, and others. It's a different kind of fight, but we will continue to fight to our brothers and sisters all over the region, from Iraq to Syria, everywhere else in the world. Tonight, we heard from Christian leaders and senior U.S. policymakers, Catholic, Orthodox, Protestant, Christians joined hands and took a stand for the persecuted brethren in the Middle East, Africa, and all around the world. Democrats and Republicans came together to take a stand as Americans with a clear message that the U.S. must do more to combat oppression and empower the oppressed. A special thanks and congratulations to all of our 2021 award recipients, congressional champions, Charles Malik Award and Cedar of God Award. The Charles Malik Award will be given to Senator Menendez for his tireless work. This past year, he helped to give more aid to Lebanon. He worked on the passage of the Armenian genocide. He's been vocal on all of our issues. So as you can see, many members of Congress could not leave. They have votes. So he will be awarded the Charles Malik Award tomorrow. Thank you all for your bipartisan leadership in defense of Christians. While there is much more to be done to address global Christian persecution, these members of Congress and your served chair have made significant differences. We look forward to continue the fight together. This evening's summit would not have been possible without the support of our partners and friends. We have partnered with several very close organizations like Solidarity of Lebanon, like Open Doors, ANCA, Philos Project, United States Catholic Bishops, and others. We've heard from my friend and brother, Namat Frem, why he resigned from being a member of parliament, because he couldn't make a difference. I would also like to thank our Board of Trustees, again, Mr. Namat Frem, Charles Haj, Anton Sehnewi, Dr. Haddad, Nadim Haddad, Tom Abraham, and someone that doesn't like to be recognized, Mike Kazma. You've been extremely supportive and helpful, and we want to thank you for everything that you've helped with IDC here and helping in scholarships for Lebanese Christian students. Thank you, Mike, for your support, and thank you for coming all the way from Florida. I also want to thank our new executive director, Rich Gazelle. He retired, he's an Air Force retired judge, advocate, and with a background of terrorism and specialized in Hezbollah. We love you. And my whole team, Jim Nolan, my CFO, if you can get a penny from him, I would give you $100. Where is he? Jim? Jim Nolan, thank you. He's the most frugal CFO. So thank you. And I want to thank Grace Schmidt. Grace is the Director of Administration and Development. I wouldn't be able to do much without her. Thank you, Grace. I want to thank our Advocacy Director. Everything that happens in Congress, Stephen Howard, thank you for all of your hard work. And last but not least, Sarah Basile, our Communications and Outreach Director. Thank you to a great team. And I never thank my, should I call it better half? Nada. She is a stubborn, orthodox, great lady. Every time I fight, she wants me to fight more. So she keeps me going to fight the fight. This evening, we celebrated IDC's milestone achievements, but our work is far from over. There's still much more to be done. I urge each and every one of our viewers to take action by visiting indefenseofchristians.org and click on Take Action, where you can make your voice heard in Congress and at the White House on a number of our most important issues. Together, we have made history, but the road lies ahead is a challenge one. We need your continued support to support our cause. Further, I encourage you to visit our website and make a tax-deductible gift in defense of Christians in defense of Christians in the Middle East, Africa, and all around the world. As we wrap up this evening's Solidarity Dinner, I would like to remind you that our Summit 2021 program is not over. I invite you all to join us once again tomorrow. We will have a better AC. Tomorrow morning for IDC's Capitol Hill Advocacy Day 2021. We will be hosting a series of policy briefings beginning at 9 a.m., followed by an afternoon meetings with members of Congress, led by you, our friends and supporters. We look forward to seeing you all then. As we conclude this evening's program, I invite you to join us in prayer, led by the founder of Capital Worship Ministry and IDC's Religious Advisory Board member, Pastor Dan Cummins. Have a wonderful evening, and may God bless you all. Thank you.
Will you stand together with me, please? Let us bow our heads in prayer. To him who sits upon heaven's throne, we humbly implore your mercy and grace upon our benediction. Empower us with thy Holy Spirit and the endowment of that mind of Christ to be more than conquerors, grasping firm the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God, and standing fast, shielded by our faith in the completed work of his cross over sin. Let us be advocates of democracy and freedom, lest in our apathy we enable tyranny and evil. Upon the solidarity of thy holy, immutable word, let us be that standard, that bulwark of righteousness, who turn back the evil flood of oppression and persecution, liberating the hearts, the souls, the minds, but most importantly, the bodies of those innocent ones victimized by the tides of these unholy men. We thank you, righteous Father, for these brave leaders that we have honored here tonight. For when the righteous reign, the people rejoice, but when the wicked rule, the people mourn. Empower them to be those shining bipartisan lights upon Capitol Hill, who will lead us to thy holy summit, from whose heights short-sighted party tribalism is blinded by the virtue and the vision of the needs of the human family, the children of God. For if ever the time was, it is now for us to cry out to you, O merciful Father, deliver us from evil, for thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. And if ever we needed leaders with the wisdom of Solomon, that hour is upon us. In the powerful name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. On behalf of all of us, Tafik, let me start with you first. A special thanks for you for all that you're doing. You thanked everybody else. I want to send a word of thanks to you. But I also would like to thank Tracy Sable from EWTN. She coordinated us in a very lovely way tonight. I thank you so much for your presence among us, you and for all those who work behind the scenes, so many people. We can't name them all, but to everybody who came and added their little touch to make this happen, to those ladies and men outside, to you, Tracy, and to all the team at IDC, thank you and God bless.